I'd like to ask Kaarina to come up and present now, please.
So I would like to start by giving a few details about my background. So this is going to be a very different presentation from all the presentations so far. And I'm amazed myself that this is what I'm doing here in a gift economy conference, because the gift economy has been for me a much needed relief from academic or political issues, which are very tough today, as we all know. But I thought I would tell you a little bit about how I have put the gift economy into practice in my role as a politician. So the aim of the presentation is to discuss how the logic of the gift, as described by Genevieve, has been replaced by the logic of exchange in ever cruder forms through structural adjustments and neoliberal restructuring. And this may seem a bit strange to you that I would be talking about the Nordic welfare state as a gift economy. I have to immediately explain that definitely when I compare the Nordic welfare state to the real gift economies, eco-villages, and all the wonderful presentations we've heard about gift economies in practice, well, it's a far cry from any kind of a gift economy. But when you compare the Nordic welfare state to what is happening now, how the Nordic welfare state is being transformed, then you really long for the Nordic welfare state. And in fact, the Nordic welfare state, by many historians, is considered one of the most successful egalitarian experiments in social organization. So I would like to focus on those aspects of the Finnish version of the Nordic welfare state that contain gift elements. And my case in point is the treatment of the elderly today and what is happening when a system having very significant aspects of the gift is being transformed. So the gifts of the women-dominated fields and the logic of giving as a value, as an interpretative register, is being replaced by the neoliberal, neoconservative ideals. So I'm taking some liberties here in how I interpret the gift paradigm. We all know that it has to do with unilateral need satisfaction, and I have, in my politics, translated some of the terms because the audience is quite particular, and the language I would use here is not the same language as I would use with politicians who are already quite resisting to words like feminism. So I talk about such core values as eco-social balance, healthy, sustainable communities, collective survival rather than the rights of stockholders, and try to expose the dysfunctions of this dysfunctional politics of endless growth in a world of finite resources. And also I think that it's a form of gift economy in the politics to vision safeguarding the needs and the biocapacity of the future, of future generations. So I think what is happening now around the world, and I'm amazed how identical the discourse is in the Canadian newspapers that I've been reading in the past few days, and the discourse that we hear daily in Finland. I think we're at the stage where the neoliberal, the capitalistic patriarchy has become its worst possible formation. And what is happening, this is the last stage where the few remaining gifts are being reverted and appropriated to give them, to direct them at the corporations. So this is a process which consists in appropriating the language, the very language of feminism and human rights people and peace activists. So all of a sudden, the hardcore right-wing politicians are talking about democracy, freedom, equality, equity, justice, but when you look at the meaning of those words, they're all from the corporate point of view. For instance, in Kiiminki, in the municipality, the local government where I'm a council member, we have had a number of consultants coming to tell us what the new freedoms are today. The new freedoms are freedom of choice and freedom to be an entrepreneur. So those are the two key freedoms of Finland today. So the Finnish welfare state's gift-related dimensions have to do with the kind of solidarity that consisted in progressive taxation, finished. Now doctors, lawyers, and other people are taking their salaries as shares, which means they pay 28% only tax, and the poor people are paying disproportionately much more because they can't speculate with this kind of financial system. And the municipal tax is an equal tax for all. And I could say a lot more about that, how horrible this taxation transformation is, but it's just one dimension of it. So in the old system, through income transfers, we would respond to everybody's basic needs. Employment was a right, housing was a right, healthcare was a right. And gender equality was an official aim, and all of the European, all of the northern Nordic states have had great achievements in the realm of gender equality, with daycare centers, equal pay for equal work, and so on. But all of that is now being threatened. And so really the corporations are taking over in all of the different fields. The welfare nation throughout Europe has had as its basic aims the eradication of poverty by granting minimum sufficient income, public assistance to prevent social exclusion, and the welfare state's whole philosophy is protection against social risks and downturns of the economy. So for instance, when I have paid all my life, those years when I was in Finland, because I was in Canada for 17 years, I have paid unemployment insurance. Now that I'm unemployed because I'm too radical, talking about things like gift economy, and I'm out of a job, I am told that I should accept any work whatsoever and not be a freeloader. Well, I paid for it, it's my insurance. But the climate has changed, and there is a blaming the victim mentality that is coming with neoliberalism. So we are part of the European Union, as you know, and the goals of the horrendous Lisbon Treaty, which is about making Europe the most competitive, knowledge-based society or area in the world, is behind all of these big changes. So there's a list, I won't read them out all, but you all know the same from Canada, from the US, and...
If you don't read them, they won't be on the radio.
Okay, I'll read them then. Labor deregulation, precariousness, lowering of salaries, general privatization of services, delocalization, government controls prevented, budget austerity, the application of user fees in health and education. Education is still free in Finland right now. Even universities are free, but I bet you they won't be for long. The phasing out of state-supported credit, the deregulation of grain markets, the elimination of minimum wage legislation and other trade union employee contracts. They now talk about local contracts. So what we're witnessing is the demise of the welfare state and a reversal of the direction of the gifts. Formerly, the public services for the elderly, for instance, had a cap on service fees. And, you had recommendations or even stronger stipulations for the number of nurses that had to be present to look after the elderly. And you had free medication. Now, under neoliberalism, the European Union directive demands that there must be no unfair competition. So they consider that the state subsidies to the elderly care homes are a form of distortion of the free market. There is a European Union directive that you have to take the cows out 60 days a year. And they monitor this very closely because cows are productive to their owners. But there is no directive on taking the elderly out for walks. And we read daily about the elderly who have been inside in their homes or in the institutions for years without getting fresh air. I am very embarrassed about what's happening in my country. There's been a lot of outrage about the treatment of the elderly in the recent years, and it's all started to happen under the neoliberal regime. So what has happened is, whereas the elderly were considered, it was considered natural to look after the elderly in all income, on all income levels. Now the European Union has understood that the elderly are a great market. Exchange economy. Here's some figures from the local and regional government paper. Finland has 5.2 million inhabitants, life expectancy for women 82.3, for men 75.3 years. Today we have 15.6% of the people over 65. In 2030, 27% of the population will consist of elderly people. So that is a great market. And here in my quotation, you can read about how the government papers, the official papers, talk about wonderful things happening, taking place as a preparation for the what they call elderly explosion. So there will be statutory services, including home help, support services, informal care allowance for those relatives who stay at home to look after the elderly. There are housing services and so on. So far, when these systems functioned, for instance, in Helsinki, where my mother was in an elderly people's home, they took 85% of her income and left her the remaining part for her own expenses. Today, that is all changing. Wait, I'm just looking for the... So if my mother was getting income from her pension and other sources, so 85% of that goes to the elderly care home. It includes medication, services, everything. And they had to leave the 15% to her for whatever needs she might have. Now, with the neoliberal restructuring, the private and multinational companies are invading the markets, and the municipalities, like the one where I am a politician, they are buying services from the private. And it's become a Wild West, it's completely a deregulated field for profit making. And there's been a lot of cases about people with memory failures signing papers agreeing to buy all kinds of security equipment, and you know, there's a vision, an official European Union vision that most of the people in Europe, when this population explosion happens, have to be taken care of in the home. And of course, who is supposed to look after them? It's the women. But at the same time, women in general are expected to work longer. The pension age is put off. At the same time, they should be able to stay full-time at home and look after the elderly. And what's more, the corporate world has decided that in Finland we are too free with burnout and the depression diagnosis, so they should be revised. And this is directly in response to the fact that in the woman-dominated fields of nursing and care for the elderly and so on, there's a huge burnout because with the cost efficiency, this productivity and competitiveness, the women are working like crazy. And I see it in my own municipality that they're just completely exhausted. And they're more exhausted because what doesn't get done by the public sector is now shifted onto the homes. So women have very many different jobs now. And it's also quite ridiculous that the major threat to the European Union's future is considered to be the high rate of the elderly. And I tell you, I know that I don't have much time left, but to skip to the dirty part here, what can we do in a situation like this? As a politician, I use different strategies. I promote the gift economy by continuing to do research on the Finnish gift-oriented cultures, the goddess and so on, and that's the book that came out of this research, the one that's over there with the topic of women and bears. Then I have also been part of an Finland's Eco-Psychology Association, where we teach psychologists and people in different realms about the ancient ecologically sustainable way. So we do a kind of eco-village activity as well. And, and then in politics, I use the strategy of shaming. I sit there in the council, and when decisions are made that are completely against human rights, I just stare at them and say, are you really a human being that you can do this? They were trying to cut the services, the nighttime services to the elderly so that they would be abandoned in their homes, all in the name of cost efficiency. And I invited the elderly associations and some other groups to come to the council meeting. And then we were distributing the Universal Human Rights Declaration to all of the decision makers. And we were singing Christmas songs and doing different things like that. I can't find my, sorry, this is too long, but.
It looks like a flag.
Good, actually, very interesting.
You have to read very quickly. It's in the wrong order.
We'll see what we're missing anyway.
Yeah. Okay, I can't find it, but so I'll just I'll swing it. So I evoke Kaarina Kailo, whom I have mentored over the years. She has given me a hard time about not always having my own cup when I go for coffee. So I have finally got the Sami technology into my home. This is the cup that I can carry when I go to restaurants that use plastic cups. And then if I don't like the use of the plastic knives, I can take this out. But I think it's also a great symbol that in a time when high technology is replacing all of the woman-dominated jobs, and where we are coming up with the most horrendous wellness technology, we need to remind that technology can be something other than high technology. And as a last example, I want to tell you that in the effort now to get rid of the women nurses and to look after this problem of too many elderly showing up in the horizon, Oulu, the town where I live, is very well known for the technological inventions, and they have now all kinds of wellness technology programs which will replace women. They have smart floors that they're going to put into the old people's homes. Smart floors mean that if you fall over, the floor sends a signal, and then that way somebody can come and check on you. They have flashing utensils so that people who, with failing memory, who don't remember to eat, the utensils flash in the kitchen so that you remember to go and eat. Again, you don't need a nurse there because you have flashing utensils. And then you have smart nappies. The smart nappies in the hospitals allow the nurses, the remaining few nurses, to check on a board what produce is coming into the nappy. So do they have to run or not? And there's airbags for the elderly. Now this is the smart clothing industry that's decided that because a lot of the elderly who are not looked after properly by the system anymore, when they wander off into the snow or lose their memory and don't know where their homes are, at least if they fall over, the airbags come out and they don't get hurt. So this captures the vision of where we are going and what the neoliberal worldview is like. So you take the gift of presence, the nurses giving time and attention, individualist attention to the elderly, to a system where you are partially abandoned into the home, and you have some people sometimes checking on you 1 hour at a time, and it's the new public management requires you cannot spend more than 1 hour. So they don't take into account that people have different needs. So for instance, a woman who had lost her dog, the dog was her only friend, the social worker was not allowed to stay any longer than the 1 hour because they keep tabs, the quantitative thing, they keep tabs of everything, and to ensure efficiency, you're not allowed to change that pattern. So this is what I'm fighting in the political system, and I haven't had much luck, but before I end, I want to give you hope, because I thought that people in politics make these horrible decisions because that's what their values are. But no, they are just brainwashed, and they really think that we have no alternative. We did an alternative budget that showed that we didn't need to do any of these horrible changes to the system. And then some of the right-wing women were horrified that that's what they had decided. They don't have alternatives. Nobody tells them what's behind, because the language used is totally misleading. So that gives us hope in the feminist circles, that the gift we can give to this transformation process is really give a lot of information about what doesn't need to be done and what's behind this whole process now. I think that if we want to go back into the future, to the gift economy in the different locations we are, that's going to take a little bit of time, and I'm quite willing to let the welfare state go if we get a gift economy instead. Yeah.